Hello and a warm welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and for watching Smart24 TV. My name is Anthony, and this is another edition of Financial Markets. On the show, we get to analyze a different stock market and get to, of course, bring you some of the biggest headlines on the stock market world and the treasury bond markets and other several segments of the financial markets. To be part of the show, you can be able to follow us on Twitter at Smart24 TV. Now, that is our new handle, and you can also catch us live on YouTube. That is at Smart24 TV live, and definitely get to give us feedback there in the comment section. My name is Anthony, and of course, it's a Thursday. We get to, of course, get closer to the end of the week, and getting tough, of course, is the situation on the U.S. markets, as we're going to see later on, as most of the futures on the S&P 500 fell after the release of the CPI data for the month of April. That indicated lower than expected rises in the inflation rate there on the US markets. Of course, we come back to Uganda and get to see that there was a little bit of slow trading in Uganda and the rest of Africa with mixed feelings from different segments of the markets. Well, to just kick off the show, remember, we can trade with Altex East Africa, and Altex East Africa is a platform with which you can be able to buy treasury bonds now under their ZABU initiative using mobile money. Now, Altex is a company that was started in South Africa, but later on, of course, spread its wings to East Africa and into Uganda. With Altex East Africa, in conjunction with Altex Clearing Africa, they formed and founded this very profound investment company. With Altex East Africa's ZABU initiative, we are saying you can invest with your mobile money. All you need to do is to grab your phone and get to dial *292#. And following the prompts, you can be able to use your mobile money to buy treasury bonds in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. Altex East Africa, you can do something new. Let's get to dive right into the business of the African stock exchanges, starting off with Ghana Stock Exchange. This time around in West Africa, the stock exchange seemed pretty slow on the third day of trading, where we see mainly fewer stocks than usual participating, and quite a few losers, no gainers, no losers, and a couple of other participants on the market. MTN Ghana came out with some of the biggest volume, as well as CAL Bank Ghana and EcoBank Transnational as well. These were some of the biggest movers on the Ghana stock market. Ghana Stock Exchange really remains quite slow in trading, and an average trader on the African market, that is on the African stock market spectrum. Johannesburg Stock Exchange, on the other hand, the principal stock exchange for South Africa and the largest stock exchange in Africa, also had slower trading than usual. And in summary, however, there was 24% improvement in the volumes in Johannesburg on Wednesday, and a 14% improvement in the turnover as well was registered, whereas the deals declined by 22%. Currently, market capitalizations on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange are as high as 21 trillion rand. That is what we are seeing on the market. Now, in aggregate, on Wednesday, we had over 330 stocks participating in the weekly trades. And when you look at the end of the day, we had 135 gainers and over 163 losers on the market, with RH Ropello coming in with the biggest gain of 25%. Now, Ropello is the healthcare investment vehicle, which aims at producing superior returns whilst contributing to the socio-economic value creation and the development of South Africa as a nation, and making, of course, a contribution to the ongoing transformation in South Africa. Ropello currently holds 162 million rand in market capitalization, making it the 348th stock most valuable on the the South African Stock Exchange. Besides Ropello, we did have Sophie's Enterprises as well at 23.64%, and Affine Investments about 18.42% was added, whereas the Saka Technologies added about 9.11%. Those were some of the biggest gainers on the market. On the losing side, Transaction Capital came out with the worst depreciation for the day after losing close to about 3.84 rand, down to 7.11 rand per share. Transaction Capital is an active investor in and operator of credit-oriented alternative assets. Transaction Capital is a company owning a portfolio of operating subsidiaries and operates, of course, a group of treasury functions. And the company issued ordinary shares and listed on the South African Stock Exchange a couple of years back. Currently, it holds 5.4 billion rand on the South African exchange and is the currently 133rd most valuable on the market. Those are statistics about one of the biggest losers on the market yesterday, and that is none other than Transaction Capital. Kibo Energy at least lost 25% down on Wednesday, as well as more investors drew away from energy, especially during this season in South Africa. Kibo Energy is a multi-asset energy company engaged in the business of development and operation of the thermal coal power projects in Botswana, Mozambique, and Tanzania. One of the issues that South Africa has been faced with is load shedding. And if you remember, just a few months ago, there was, of course, an uprisal, of course, about the load shedding issues in the country. And of course, citizens were demanding for more answers about the energy sector of South Africa. Well, companies like Kibo Energy contribute quite a lump sum to the energy of generation and, of course, operation as well as transmission in South Africa. Kibo has developed at least 2 thermal power projects so far. That is the Mabesekwa Coal Independent Power Project in Botswana and Benga Independent Power Project in Mozambique. That's currently what the company has been able to do in Africa and a couple of other African nations like Tanzania. Regarding the performance of the J203, which is the benchmark of performance on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, at least we had 1.85 lost on this all-share index, down to 77,775 points, closing off Wednesday. Away from Johannesburg, Nairobi also dropped 1.58%, as we shall 1.58 points, about 1.55%, generally speaking, on their all-share index. And we shall get back to that very quickly. But Nigeria also dropped 396 points on their all-share index on Wednesday, whereas Zimbabwe Stock Exchange lost at least 469.93, about 0.79% off for the Wednesday tradings. Let's come back home, of course, and start off with the Uganda Securities Exchange and have a look at some of the market indicators here on the market. At the Uganda Stock Exchange, also the all-share index paired at least 8.72 points after a very slow day of trading. Generally speaking, there was only 2 equities participating in trade, just 2 on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, these 2, at the end of the day, we had 1 gainer, namely Centum Investments, and several other stocks here that moved lower for the day. About, let's see, 7 other stocks that did come out on the losers list. A pretty not very good performance for the Uganda Stock Exchange on Wednesday. In aggregate, the shares that were traded were just 15,307 shares and corresponding to a market value of 6.3 million Ugandan shillings. Currently, the Uganda Securities Exchange holds about 19.5 trillion in market capitalization on the exchange. In aggregate, we had just two equities, and that was MTN Uganda and Wumeme. MTN Uganda took at least 1,500 shares, and Wumeme took hold of 13,807 shares on the market. Centum Investments, like I said, came out at the bottom with a 0.84% appreciation, and was the only gainer. And on the losing side, Jubilee Holdings stock came out last with an end-of-day price depreciation of 2.66% and closing off at 4,934. Now currently, Wumeme is trading at 440 Ugandan shillings per share, which is one of their record high, one of their highest prices on the market so far. And they're doing quite well. And currently, they are the second most traded on stock on the exchange as well in the past one quarter of the year 2023. And their price is doing pretty well in the long and short term. Of course, as we can see, 1 week performances are at a gain of 8.64%, and 4 week performances are 15.9%, whereas 3 month performances are at as high as 46.7%, and 6 month performances are 12% here on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Well, pretty much you can understand why Wumeme is currently having the current attention that it is having, and deserving as well. Well, because of course of their very good dividend yield this year, that will see the dividend rise from 54 to 63.9. That is, of course, pending the approval of the shareholders meeting that is scheduled for next week on the 18th of May. Definitely, if you are a shareholder, you should be looking forward to that particular meeting later on next week. And I hope you get engaged in the discussions about the way forward, especially as the company gets to delist very soon and gets to, of course, also exit Uganda after the expiration of their contract or their concession with government. MTN Uganda had at least 1,500 shares traded and about closing at 168 shillings after losing 1.69 Ugandan shillings. The stock continues to struggle through the haze, and not a very clear picture which direction the stock is taking. But currently, this price looks to be stabilizing around 168, 169 Ugandan shillings currently at Wumeme. When you look at the graph, seriously, there's a very sharp decline from the month of March to the current date. On average, at least over 100 shillings has been lost, from 180 shillings to 170 Ugandan shillings. Consequent of this, of course, 1 week performances have dropped with a drop of 1.16%, and 4 week performances dropped by 0.01%, and over 3 months performances indicate 6.67% drop, and 6 months indicate at least 8.05% that was shed off the company. Well, that's pretty much it from the Uganda Stock Exchange. Like I said, generally speaking, trading was a little bit slow, and traders were seemingly not as very much aggressive as we saw them on Tuesday and Monday. And of course, as we can see, the shares were actually down with this particular day of trading. Therefore, the USE All Share Index dropped off as well, 8.72 points, down to 1,082 points on Wednesday afternoon. The USE Local Company Index also decreased, consequence, of course, of the poorly performing domestic stocks currently like MTN Uganda. And the Local Company Index currently is at 274.19 points. That's where we are currently, and that's trading from the Uganda Stock Exchange. Uganda Stock Exchange gives you an opportunity to be a trader and an investor. By simply, of course, getting you to open an account, you can be able to get in touch with any of the licensed stockbrokers, and they can help you on how to negotiate your way through the stock exchange. Now, you can also visit their website at www.use.org.ug and get to the Easy Portal. When you get to Easy Portal, that's where you can put in your details. That is your contact, your email address, and the rest of the other details that are required for you to open an account. This is a process that is free of charge and very, very seamless, and you can be a part of that experience at the Uganda Stock Exchange. Let's move on now to Kenya, in Nairobi, and have a look at the markets in the land of Uhuru, currently the land of Ruto, as we may have it now. The Nairobi Securities Exchange currently has a market value of 1.57 trillion Kenyan shillings of the 65 stocks that are listed on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Currently, the exchange had 43 equities participate yesterday in trading, ending the day with 14 gainers and over 23 losers. Sasini Tea and Coffee led the gainers with an appreciation of 9.98%. And this was with a closing price of 31.40 Ugandan shillings. Now, Sasini Tea and Coffee is primarily engaged in the growth and production and processing and marketing of tea and coffee, which is one of the backbone crops of the Kenyan economy. The company is involved in growing and processing of tea, as well as the commercial milling and the marketing of coffee, dairy products, forestry operations, livestock, and horticulture around Kenya. Sasini Tea and Coffee currently has about 7.16 billion Kenyan shillings. That is representing about 0.0045%. That is on the Kenyan market. Sasini Tea Coffee is currently valued at 31.40 Kenyan shillings per share, after appreciating by 2.85 Kenyan shillings yesterday. Besides Sasini Tea and Coffee, we did have as well the Olympia Capital Holdings Company at least gain 5.96%. And Olympia Capital Holdings is a Kenyan-based holding company with main investments in dealing in manufacture and sale of products used in the construction industry, such as floor tiles, the adhesives, UPVC, windows and door frames, and the like. Current market capitalization is at 128 million Kenyan shillings for Olympia Capital Holdings. And when you look at their current performance, they gained 0.18 Kenyan shillings yesterday, closing of 3.2 Kenyan shillings at the moment, and had about 200 shares traded at 640 Kenyan shillings on the Securities Exchange. Their recent performance looks pretty interesting. They are ranked the 16th in terms of year-to-date performance. That is from the 1st of January to the current date. They are one of the best performers, and the stock has accrued over 22% of value in the past 1 month. A pretty interesting stock you can check out on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Away from Olympia Capital Holdings, Home Africa also gained 3.57% after Wednesday trading. Home Africa is a property developer and the only property developer on the Kenyan market, and plans to expand to other African countries as well. Home Africa is currently having about 118 million Kenyan shillings of market capitalization, representing at least 0.0075% of the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now, when you look at the biggest losers for the day, East African Cables unfortunately came out last with an end-of-day price depreciation of 5.35%. Centum Investments also lost 4.71%, and TransCentury lost 4.21% on Wednesday. When you look at the biggest movers on the market, Safaricom came back with a huge volume, the biggest volume for the day. At least 6.69 million shares were traded on Safaricom stock, and currently the company is still holding the number one spot in terms of the most valuable companies on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, with a total market capitalization of 613 billion Kenyan shillings on the market, representing at least 39% of the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Current trades on Wednesday showed a 6.69 million shares volume in 327 deals and about 102 million Kenyan shillings. Unfortunately, the day ended with a loss on their price after dropping of 0.3 Kenyan shillings to close off the stock at 15.3 Kenyan shillings. Safaricom has been suffering this year, so to say, especially in as far as having their price drop, consequent of mostly the influx of foreign investors coming out of the stock and getting out of Nairobi, and of course the acquisition of the different, telecommunication expansion of the telecommunication network to Ethiopia, where it's doing quite well, perhaps by the statistics we are seeing on the Ethiopian telecommunications market. But definitely in terms of the stocks and trading, the company stock price has really suffered immensely in the recent past. And there you should take more caution before buying or selling that particular stock at Safaricom Kenya. Now, KCB Group also came in with an 804,000 shares volume. Cooperative Bank of Kenya, about 1.24 million shares as well. Regarding the performance of the indices, the all-share index dropped 1.58 points, down to 100.51 points. Now, on the U.S. market, the stocks on Wednesday closed with a mixed feeling following the release of the government data that showed that April consumer prices rose at the slowest pace in the last 2 years. The S&P 500, or the Standard & Poor's, which is a benchmark of the listings on the New York Stock Exchange, ticked down to above the flat line, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average slipped at least 0.41%, or more than about 100 points. And the technology-heavy Nasdaq Composite, on the other hand, rose by 0.62% at exactly 12:14 p.m. Now, according to the latest data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics released on Wednesday, it shows that the consumer price index rose 0.41% in April over last month, and 4.9% over the last 1 year. Prices in March rose 0.1% on a monthly basis and 5% from the prior year. Economists had expected monthly increase of about 0.4% and an annual increase of about 5%, according to data from Bloomberg. The report could add also that the expectations that the Fed will pause its rate hike campaign in its next meeting in June. And April's 4.9% annual increase is still significantly above the Fed Reserve's target, which is 2%, according to right now what we're seeing on the Wall Street, what's making headlines there. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in and for watching Smart24 TV. Quite a number of shows and business coming ahead, and you don't want to miss any of that action. My name is Anthony. I'll catch you tomorrow, same time, same place. Have a very good night.